formations out in the middle of the Israeli desert. Turns out that the entire city of Gomorrah has been found, still intact, still standing. Here at the base of Mount Masada, between Masada and the Dead Sea, you can see the ashen remains of the cities of the plains, and in the background, you can see two elongated pyramid-shaped objects. Now, 90-degree angles don't happen in nature, but here in the Judean wilderness are edifices that are the same length, width, depth, and height and angle of incline that open up the way into the temple site area. And just as the book of Deuteronomy says, nothing remains of the cities of the plains except for brimstone, salt, and ashes, and nothing grows thereon. And they're outside of the main population of Jerusalem, and as you're looking back at Mount Masada and Herod's veranda in the distance, you see the ashes and the ashen city that remains before you. There's Bruce Brimstone Brill, as we refer to him respectfully, holding several pieces of brimstone that we secured just this last time when we were out during the Feast of Pesach, or Passover. And you see the ashes in the background as he's holding that brimstone in his hands. Now, the brimstone, it says that it rained down or hailed down out of heaven on the cities of the plains, destroying them. And in the ashen remains, you can see how that it has the pattern as the brimstone rained down, and then the ashes snuffed it out so that these chunks of brimstone, which are 95.72% pure sulfur, still remain to this very day. There are sphinx-shaped objects, pyramid-shaped objects that continue to erode year by year as we go out there at least twice a year. And there I am in my desert gear, which with the temperatures reaching over 120 degrees down at the lowest point of planet Earth, it's quite inhospitable. And this is the reason that a lot of people don't go out there. Those are lion paw prints. Now, lions prowl the desert remains out there, and there are the paw prints of a lioness and her two cubs. And as you know, lions out there eat desert gazelle, and we're a lot slower than any desert gazelle I've ever seen. And here you see the body and the four paw prints of a lion which was laying down in the ashes out there. And that's the reason why every night before sundown we're behind the nylon screen walls of our tent, because we know nylon keeps out lions. But if that doesn't work, my daughter's holding an M16 full automatic, and Bruce has a 357 on his side. And so when we go out there, we try to be a little bit more prepared. But there it is, what Simon Peter spoke of. Simon Peter spoke of the cities of the plains, Sodom and Gomorrah, as God has left a visible example in the earth of his righteous judgments. And just as God does not rain fire and brimstone down on every generation in which there's gross wickedness, and of course we happened to see Washington, D.C. on television on the news last night, which is certain proof that God doesn't rain fire and brimstone down on every wicked generation immediately, but God did leave a testimony in the earth that God is the judge, and it is a testimony to all those who would live an ungodly life. I have in my hands one of the pieces of brimstone that was recovered from the city of Gomorrah. In fact, I have the world's largest privately held collection of brimstone on planet Earth outside of the city of Gomorrah. And this piece of brimstone is 95.72% pure sulfur. 3 of their trace metals in it. It burns extremely hot. In fact, we made the mistake of ill-advisedly lighting up a small piece when I got back into Jerusalem several years ago. Lit a small piece down in the basement, the lower level of a hostel there in the Jewish quarter. When we began choking and gagging, then we evacuated the building, got the brimstone out there, because all of a sudden it felt like what we were inhaling was very deadly, and it was. And so we got it out on the street, let it burn out, and that was the last time we lit up a piece indoors. But this is what God has left, this testimony in the earth. And as the city began to then collapse, as the ashen remains snuffed it out, what is left for us today are the remains, these visible remains of God's righteous judgment. But it is not just a reminder of God's judgment against the wicked, but it says that it is also an ensample to the righteous, that God is able to deliver the righteous in the day of judgment. So this piece of brimstone is good news and it's bad news. It just depends on where you are in relationship to the Creator of the heavens and the earth. And it is in this period of time that God said that he would leave a reminder in the earth that Josephus spoke of it as common knowledge in his day. Of course, Simon Peter spoke of it, and it has been recently found again since Israel came back in their own land in this last generation, and since Israel is now inhabiting that part of the world again. And as it says further in Peter, he said, knowing this, that in the last days scoffers will come. And within the context of what he was speaking in 2 Peter chapter 3, this in the last days, these scoffers would not only be believers, but they would be people who would be considered as ministers within the body of believers. And these men would be walking after their own lust, or taking care of themselves, making sure that what they got out of it was feathering their own nest. And it says that these scoffers would be walking after their own lust and scoffing, saying, where is this promise coming? Since the fathers fell asleep, everything continues going on the way it always has. This they will willingly be ignorant, he said. God judged the world in the days of Noah, and he'll judge the world again. In the days of Noah, he shook the foundations of the earth, but this next time, he's going to shake the heavens as well. Everything that can be shaken is about to be shaken. The only thing that's going to be left standing are those things which are grounded and founded on a rock and cannot be moved, cannot be shaken. But make no mistake, it is God who is going to do the shaking. And he's doing it for a reason. Just as Yeshua said in the Gospels, that when the wind blows and when the waves roll, it didn't say if, it says when they do. Because there is a time in which God is going to shake things loose, and it is concerning the last days in which God has left a testimony. And I am always amazed as we travel around the United States and as we present some of these different archaeological finds that have now come to light just in the last generation, and most of them since the time that Israel took back the city of Jerusalem since 1967. And we see that just as Peter said, that they will willingly be ignorant in the last days, as we toured around the United States with not only the pieces of brimstone, but also inviting the archaeologists that found Noah's Ark, that is noted by the Turkish government for the find of Noah's Ark, that we were amazed at when we were on radio and television how few people would actually go out of their way to be able to find out and be able to hold in their hands pieces of Noah's Ark, petrified remains of Noah's Ark that exist to this very day. Because it was in the late 1950s that a boat-shaped object appeared in a field in northern Turkey in the mountains of Urartu. And then it was in 1978 that an earthquake took place in northern Turkey, and that earthquake went right straight down the middle of that boat-shaped object. You can still see the fissure line in it today. And what happened is that by an earthquake, in 1 minute, what happened is that it shook all the earth away around the sides of this boat-shaped object, exposing 30 to 50 feet of the horizontal deck support timbers and the rib timbers of the petrified remains of Noah's Ark. And in 1 minute, God excavated the Ark of Noah more in 1 minute than what archaeologists could do in 100 years with modern equipment.